Kigali, could we lower it just a little? Thanks. Kigali, Rwanda, 1986. I'm a 25-year-old former banker standing in a field of sunflowers on a bright, sunshiny day. And standing next to me is a bespectacled, apple-cheeked nun named Felicula. We're in that sunflower seed to dream of creating the country's first microfinance bank. And we're there to visit with oil pressing businesses, examples of the tiny kinds of ventures that our bank will fund. We'll call our enterprise Duterembere. It means to go forward with enthusiasm, and all I see is upside. 2016, Kigali, Rwanda. Now I'm the 55-year-old CEO of a global organization named Acumen. It's night. The sky is midnight blue, and I'm standing speaking to President Kagame and his ministers, telling them about the launch we intend to do of a $70 million off-grid solar fund to bring clean, affordable electricity to 10 million low-income people across East Africa. Now I understand not just the upside, but the downside risks of what change are about, and yet still I'm confident that we'll pull this one off. Right before I get on stage to make my speech, a young woman in a navy suit walks up to me and says, "Miss Novogratz, I think you knew my auntie." I said, "Really? What was her name?" Because so many of my friends had been killed in the genocide. And she said her name was Felicula. And all of a sudden my eyes welled with tears. I said, Felicula, I haven't heard her name in decades. And suddenly I was back again in that sunflower field, remembering the day that Felicula was murdered in a hit-and-run accident, really for daring to reject the status quo and standing for women's rights. That was the time I understood the high stakes of change. I said, who are you again? And she said, my name is Monique. I'm the Deputy General of the Central Bank. And if you had asked me in 1986, or any of my co-founders, when women had just gotten the right to open a bank account without their husband's signature, if you had said to us that in 30 years, we wouldn't just be improving women's economic condition, which was our mission, but that a young woman in the next generation would be running the financial system, and that Rwanda would have more women parliamentarians than any country on the planet, I'm not sure we would have believed you. Maybe our dreams were too small. And I understood in that moment that I was there back in that same place to be reminded that I, like all of you, stand on the shoulders of greats who came before, and that I was there simply to complete work that Felicula and women like her had started but could not complete in their lifetime. And that in this moment in history, it is to each of us to take on dreams that are so big, we can't complete them in our lifetime. We are living in a moment that is so turbulent, in part because we know that our existing institutions no longer serve a world that is interdependent, and yet we've yet to reimagine and build the ones that do. What I've seen with Acumen in investing in over 120 companies around the world that have reached 270 million individuals is what separates those who actually not just build organizations and companies, but change systems, has to do, yes, with their business plan, their ability to manage, yes, to do with timing, but more than anything, it has to do with their character, their ability to see the world that could be, their ability to listen and empathize, and their resilience, their toughness to grit, and their grit to last not just for a few years, but for decades. In this moment, we do not have a roadmap for how to solve the biggest problems that we have. The most that we can offer ourselves is a compass, a moral compass that we build individually and collectively. And so I thought I would end simply by offering Acumen's manifesto to you to take of it what you will, and discard what doesn't work. But if you would indulge me, I'll read it. It starts by standing with the poor, listening to voices unheard, and recognizing potential where others see despair. It demands investing as a means, not an end, daring to go where markets have failed and aid has fallen short. It makes capital work for us, not control us. It thrives on moral imagination, the humility to see the world as it is, the audacity to imagine what it could be. It's having the ambition to learn at the edge, the wisdom to admit failure, and the courage to start again. It requires patience and kindness, resilience and grit, a hard-edged hope. It's leadership that rejects complacency, breaks through bureaucracy, challenges corruption, doing what's right, not what's easy. It's the radical idea of creating hope in a cynical world, changing the way the world tackles poverty and building a world based on dignity. If there is one thing I have learned in 30 years of activism, of doing this work, it is that we do not get dignity as a human race until every one of us gets dignity. And so I wish each of you Godspeed in the work that you are doing, that you do the work you came on earth to do without apology, yet full of love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm going to just invite you up back to the front with me for one more minute, if you don't mind, because we have just a couple more questions for you. You talked a lot about dignity and moral imagination. There's another word we've been using a lot here at Women Deliver, as you know, which is power. And there's these questions all around asking us, how will we use our power? So I'd like to ask you, how will you use your power?
So Acumen has brought forth the idea of patient capital and the need for different ways of using financial capital. And I think this is a moment in history where we also have to think about how we extend our social capital, our human capital. And so we are looking to integrate our capital, character, and community by building what we're calling a university reimagined that focuses on character and not just content, to offer to the world the chance for citizens to connect to one another across race, class, ethnicity, religion, ideology, to solve the toughest problems that we have as a world, because we cannot wait for leaders to come. We have to recognize that we are the leaders the world needs today.
A university reimagined.
A university reimagined.
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.